My son called me a freeloading old hag the day my shop closed. The next day, I made him homeless. The sewing machine's rhythmic whirring faded into an unsettling silence, and in that stillness, Jacob's voice pierced through me like a dagger, "My son." It tore at my heart, shredding it into pieces. I stood in the living room, my fingers gripping the tattered hem of my apron, the air thick with the lingering scent of thread and fabric softener. The hum of my life's work, years of stitching laid into the night, had come to an abrupt halt. I had just shared the devastating news with Jacob and his wife, Mia. My tailoring shop had vanished, consumed by the relentless tide of corporate giants that had invaded our city. My voice quivered as I spoke, desperately seeking a glimmer of empathy, but Jacob's expression twisted into a mask of fury, his eyes ablaze with a rage I had never witnessed before. "You're a burden now," he spat, venom dripping from his words. "You think you can just sit here and leech off us?" Mia lounged on the couch, her hair flicked back with practiced nonchalance, her smile sharp and icy. "Honestly, Anna, you're useless without that shop," she sneered. "Maybe you should consider cleaning houses. It's not like you have any real skills." Helen, her mother, sat beside her, nodding in agreement, a smirk on her face that cut deeper than any knife. "My daughter's right," she chimed in. "You can't stay here for free. There's probably a family out there looking for a live-in maid. You'd fit right in." Their words struck me like blows, each one robbing me of breath. This was the home I had built for Jacob, paid for with countless late nights, skipped meals, and dreams buried deep. I had poured my life into these walls, into him, and now I was nothing more than a parasite, a failure. I wanted to scream, to reveal the $6 million my parents had left me in a trust fund, a secret I had kept to surprise Jacob and Mia with a secure future. But their cruelty choked the truth in my throat. They didn't deserve to know, not after this. Jacob paced the room, fists clenched, his voice rising. "You've always dragged me down," he accused. "If you had been smarter, we wouldn't be stuck like this." Each word was a reminder of the nights I had sat by his bed in the orphanage, his small hand gripping mine, his 3-year-old eyes wide with fear. I had chosen him, loved him as my own, sacrificed everything to be his mother. Now, he stood before me, spitting on every sacrifice, his words a betrayal sharper than any blade. I glanced at the shelf where a faded scarf I had knitted for Jacob at 6 lay folded, its wool softened by years of his touch. My chest tightened, a wave of longing crashing over me. I remembered him as a boy, giggling as I wrapped it around his neck, his warmth against me a promise I had believed in. Part of me wanted to beg him to remember, to see the mother who had given her all, who had sown through fevers and tears to keep him safe. But Mia's voice sliced through my thoughts. "You're not staying, Anna," she said coldly. "Figure it out. Scrub floors or something." Helen's laughter was a jagged edge, chilling my skin. I forced myself to breathe, to steady the storm inside. I had spent my life putting Jacob first, enduring every hardship to keep our family whole, to give him the love I had never received. But this was more than just gratitude, it was a dismantling of everything I had built. I looked at Jacob, searching for the boy I had raised, but his eyes were cold and unyielding. "You really want me gone?" I whispered, my voice heavy with the weight of truth. Jacob didn't flinch. "You heard me," he said. "Get out." He kicked my duffel bag across the floor, the thud echoing like a door slamming shut on our past. I stared at the bag, my clothes spilling out, and felt something shatter inside me, not just my heart, but the hope I had clung to that love could mend us. I had endured for so long, swallowing my pain to keep him close, but this was too much. I knelt, gathering my things, my fingers brushing the scarf's worn threads. Tears burned my eyes, but I blinked them back, I wouldn't let them see me break. I stood, locking my gaze on Jacob one last time. "If this is what you want," I said, "I'm done trying to prove myself to you." Mia rolled her eyes, her voice dripping with disdain. "Good. We don't need your drama," she said. Helen added, "There's a shelter downtown. You'll manage." Their voices merged into a cruel hum, but I shut them out. I slung the bag over my shoulder, my steps slow but deliberate as I moved toward the door. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from the lawyer managing my parents' trust fund. "Your inheritance is ready. Confirmed to proceed." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the delete key. Jacob's shadow loomed behind me, a silent challenge. I pressed delete, the message vanishing without a trace. Let him think I was nothing. Let them all think it. The door slammed shut behind me, a sharp finality sealing the end of my old life. I stood on the porch, the night air biting my skin. My hand trembled, not from the cold, but from the weight of loss. Jacob wasn't just my son, he was my purpose, the reason I had kept going after my husband died, after my parents passed. I had built my world for him, endured every sacrifice to keep him safe, and now it lay in ashes. But beneath the pain, a spark flickered. They thought they had crushed me, but they didn't know the truth. $6 million untouched, waiting. I could have thrown it in their faces, but I held back, not out of fear, but because I wanted them to feel the cost of their betrayal. I took a step, then another, the gravel crunching beneath my shoes. The streetlights cast long shadows, and I saw myself as I had been, a young woman choosing a frightened boy over everything else. I had given him a home, a life, a mother, and he had given me this, a bag and a closed door. My throat tightened, and I let the ache settle, raw and real. But I kept walking. Deep inside, I knew this wasn't the end, it was a beginning, a reckoning for those who had underestimated me. I walked away from the house, the gravel crunching underfoot, each step a quiet rebellion against the pain clawing at my heart. The night air stung my face, but the real chill was inside, a hollow ache where Jacob's love had once thrived. My duffel bag sagged against my shoulder, heavy with the remnants of a life I had stitched together for him. I didn't look back. The slamming door echoed in my mind, a brutal reminder of the family I had lost. But I wasn't defeated, not yet. By morning, a curt text from Mia summoned me back to the house. My heart flickered with fragile hope that Jacob might soften, that the boy I had raised might still linger beneath his anger. I stepped into the living room, the air thick with tension, and found them waiting. Jacob leaned against the wall, arms crossed, jaw tight. Mia sat on the couch, scrolling her phone, her lips curled in a faint smirk. Helen, Mia's mother, perched beside her, her eyes glinting with disdain as if my presence was an affront. Their silence screamed demands, and I knew no apology was coming. I spoke first, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. "I'm done working," I declared. "I've given enough. It's time I rest." Jacob's laugh was sharp, a blade slicing through my resolve. "Rest? You've got nothing to rest on," he retorted. "No pension, no savings. You're delusional if you think you can stop." Mia looked up, her tone icy. "Our expenses are about to double with the baby, Anna," she said. "You need to pull your weight." Helen nodded, her voice laced with false pity. "Be realistic," she said. "You're not young anymore. Nobody's giving you a free pass." Their words were stones, each one bruising the hope I had carried. I wanted to tell them about the $6 million my parents had left me, the trust fund I had planned to share to ease their burdens. But their greed and cruelty locked the truth behind my lips. They saw me not as a mother, but as a tool to exploit, a seamstress to keep their lives comfortable. I clenched my hands, fighting the urge to beg for their understanding. I had spent decades enduring, swallowing my pain to keep our family whole, but this was a line I couldn't cross. Mia stood, her eyes narrowing. "There's a diner hiring dishwashers," she said. "Or some rich family needs a live-in maid. You've done that kind of work before. It's perfect." Helen's smile was venomous. "Why make this harder than it needs to be?" she said. "You're not cut out for anything else." Jacob stepped closer, his voice low and menacing. "You should have planned better before tanking your shop," he said. "We're not your charity case." The room seemed to tilt, their voices a wave threatening to drown me. My mind drifted to Jacob at 8, his fevered forehead hot against my palm as I sewed by his bedside, praying he would pull through. I had worked 3 jobs that month, my fingers raw, to pay for his medicine. That boy was gone, replaced by a stranger who saw me as a burden. My heart ached, a raw wound pulsing with memories. I wanted to fall to my knees, to plead for him to see me, to remember the mother who had given everything. But then I saw the house deed on the table, now in Jacob and Mia's names. They had schemed behind my back, stealing what I had built. The betrayal burned away my hesitation. I drove to Martha's cottage, my hands trembling on the wheel. Martha, my oldest friend, a retired teacher, lived on the city's edge, her home a haven of warmth. As I sank into a chair, I poured out my pain, my voice breaking as I described Jacob's rage, Mia's scorn, Helen's sneers. I admitted the memories that haunted me, Jacob's laughter, his small hand in mine at the orphanage, his trust in me as his mother. I wondered if I could forgive him, if my love could still hold our family together. Martha listened, her eyes soft but steady. She poured tea, her hands calm, and spoke plainly. "Love doesn't mean letting them crush you, Anna," she said. "You've given him your life. He chose to betray you. Protect yourself now. You owe that to the woman who's carried this alone." Her words were a spark igniting the strength I had buried. I saw it clearly. Jacob wasn't the boy I had saved, the one I had sewn clothes for through sleepless nights. He was a man who had chosen greed over gratitude. I thanked Martha, my resolve hardening like fabric under a hot iron. I returned to the house one last time, knowing what I had to do. Jacob stood alone, his face a mask of impatience. I looked at him, my voice firm. "I'm retiring," I said. "That's final. No one controls my life but me." His eyes widened, then darkened with fury. "You're insane," he snapped. "You'll be begging on the streets in a month." I held his gaze, searching for a trace of remorse, but found only contempt. I spoke the truth I had held for years. "You're not my biological son, Jacob," I said. "I adopted you from an orphanage at 3, abandoned like you didn't matter. I chose you. I gave you everything. And this is how you repay me." He froze, his face paling, but his anger surged back. "So what? You lied to me my whole life," he said. "You owe me for that." His words were a final cut, severing the last thread of hope I had clung to. I lifted my duffel bag, my movements deliberate. "We're done," I said. "From this moment, you and I are nothing to each other." I walked out the door, closing it softly behind me, a quiet end to a bond one had thought unbreakable. I checked into a 5-star hotel downtown, a place I had never imagined entering. The marble floors and chandeliers felt alien, but I stood tall, using the trust fund to claim a suite. As I unpacked, I found a letter from my mother tucked in an old coat's pocket. It was written before she died, her handwriting shaky but clear. "The money is yours, Anna. Use it to live, not just survive." I read it again, my fingers tracing her words, a reminder of the strength she had seen in me. I folded it carefully, my heart steady. Jacob, Mia, and Helen thought they had won. They had no idea what I was capable of. The hotel suite gleamed with polished elegance, its marble floors and silk curtains a world away from the worn wood of Jacob's house. I stood by the window, the city's glow stretching below, my mother's letter folded in my pocket, her words urging me to live, not just survive. I had severed ties with Jacob, but his betrayal lingered like a bruise, aching with every thought of the boy I had raised. I pushed the pain aside, focusing on the future. Today, I would begin shaping a home that was mine alone. I stepped into a high-end furniture showroom, its glass walls catching the noon sun, the air humming with soft jazz and the hushed voices of wealthy patrons. A young saleswoman approached, her smile warm and genuine. She introduced herself as Sarah, her badge gleaming with the shine of a new hire. Her kindness felt like a balm after the venom I had faced, and I asked to see their finest collections. She guided me to a display of velvet sofas and carved tables, her enthusiasm infectious. My hand grazed the plush surface of a navy sofa, and my breath hitched. It was nearly identical to one Jacob had loved as a teenager when we had sat together, planning a future that now felt like a distant dream. I saw him in my mind, sprawled across our old couch, his laughter filling the room as we watched cartoons. The memory was a sharp pang, stirring a longing to reach out, to ask if he regretted his cruelty. My fingers fumbled for my phone, and I texted Martha, my heart racing. I'm at a showroom, and this sofa reminds me of him. What if he's sorry? Martha's reply was swift, her words a steady anchor. He chose to hurt you, Anna, she said. Don't let love pull you back into his trap. You're building something new. Her message grounded me like a needle threading through tangled fabric. I nodded to Sarah, my voice steady as I asked about the sofa's price. Before she could answer, a voice sliced through the air, sharp and biting. Who let her in? This isn't a thrift store. I turned to see Jane, Helen's cousin, striding toward us, her heels clicking with menace. I had met her at Jacob's wedding, her gaze dismissive as if I were beneath notice. Now she loomed close, her voice loud enough to draw stares. A tailor? You can't afford this place, she said. Get out before you waste our time. The showroom hushed, eyes pinning me like spotlights. Jane's words echoed the scorn I had endured from Helen, Jacob, and Mia. My heart pounded, but I stood firm. Martha's words echoed in my mind. I'm here to buy furniture, I said, my tone even. I belong here as much as anyone. Jane laughed, a harsh, grating sound that turned heads. Belong? You're a nobody, she sneered. Go back to your needle and thread. The weight of the crowd's gaze pressed against me, and for a moment, I felt the old urge to shrink, to disappear as I had done so often to keep peace. But I wasn't that woman anymore, the one who had endured to hold her family together. I reached into my bag, pulling out a bank statement from my parents' trust fund. $6 million, I said, holding it up. Is this enough to shop here? The room gasped, a ripple of shock spreading. Sarah's eyes widened, her hands clasped in awe. Jane's smirk vanished, her face flushing, then draining to a sickly white. She grabbed the statement, her fingers trembling as she scanned it. This is fake, she stammered. There's no way you have this money. You're a fraud. Her voice cracked, desperation creeping in as the crowd murmured. I kept my composure, my resolve unyielding. I turned to Sarah. I'll take this sofa and the dining set over there, I said. Total it up. Sarah nodded, her fingers quick on her tablet, her excitement palpable. The crowd's whispers shifted, some nodding in respect, others staring in disbelief. Jane's panic flared, her eyes darting. She lunged forward, her coffee cup tilting, the hot liquid splashing across my blouse. Oops, she said, her sneer returning. Maybe you should clean that up yourself. The crowd gasped again, and the sting of humiliation burned. But I stood tall, my voice calm. I pulled out my phone, dialing the police. I'd like to report harassment and defamation, I said, my words clear. Jane's face crumpled, her bravado gone. You can't do this, she hissed. I know you're kind. You're nothing. The police arrived swiftly, 2 officers with steady, professional gazes. I handed them the bank statement and trust fund documents, all notarized, proving the $6 million was mine. They reviewed them, then turned to Jane. You've made baseless accusations, one said. That's defamation. Apologize now, or we'll proceed with charges. Jane's lips quivered, her eyes blazing with resentment, but she had no choice. I'm sorry, she muttered, her voice a begrudging whisper, her gaze fixed on the floor. I turned to Sarah, who stood frozen, her eyes shining with gratitude. I want you to handle my purchase, I said. You've been professional from the start. Sarah beamed, her hands shaking as she finalized the sale, a $200,000 order that marked her first major commission. The crowd murmured approval, their whispers now